This is a production of SDPB.
Coming up on Game Time, it's January, and that means one thing, the Hanson Classic. Nate and I will break down the state tournament feel of the games coming to the Corn Palace. Plus, we've got game changers. You'll want to see some of these stat-stuffing performers that we found, and we'll get you set up for the other top tilts coming up in the next few days. All next on Game Time.
Game Time is supported by the South Dakota Career and Technical Student Organization Center. Through CTSOs, South Dakota students can learn professional development, leadership, and industry-specific skills, helping students learn, lead, and succeed.
All right, another week of Game Time here on SDPB. I'm Nate Weck, as always, joined by Jason and Dara. And Jandy, we talk about it every week, but there's always certain things that kind of just are the headliners every week, the things that really just propel themselves to the top of the list.
Yeah.
And that's with, starting this week, there's a couple number ones we got to talk about. West Central boys, and then we also have the Lyman girls.
Yeah, last week we talked about the big Tuesday game where West Central went to the Sioux Falls Christian Gym and got it done. Well, the polls came out, and as expected, West Central takes that number one spot. They really proved it, too, with a big win on Tuesday as well, taking out Dakota Valley. It was a little tougher challenge, but Will Cool, their big guy underneath, went for 22 points, and they staved off the Panthers at the end. They really do look like that top team right now, and I didn't think they'd come together as quickly as they have. But Dave Hollenbeck has really got these guys playing well.
Yeah, Dave Hollenbeck, tremendous job. I know there's a lot of pressure because it was such a headline type of deal, too, when he took the West Central job, that this is going to propel the Trojans team to another level, to that level that they maybe haven't got to yet. So there was a lot of pressure with it. And so far, that pressure has created a lot of excitement for the West Central fans.
And I'll tell you what, that's a team that really looks but Dave Hollenbeck said this, and I agree. They're going to have to keep continuing to get better and better, because I think Sioux Falls Christian still has another round left in them where they can get better, especially in that game that they played them. So big number one move for them.
And then you got Lyman, the new number one team in Girls B. Now, we talked about that big win that they had against Mitchell a week or so ago.
I think that's what got them the number one spot,
right,
to be honest.
And that, those types of wins, when you're a B team and you beat a AA team, you start gaining steam. And that steam carried over to the polls.
Yeah, there's some good Class B teams. I think Parkinson's right there with them, but I think that win over the AA team and a good Mitchell team really stuck with the voters in their minds, and they've vaulted up to that number one spot now that Centerville has a loss last week. Their wins have been impressive. Over Gregory, a nice win. Of course, Stickney had a nice win. I think that's solidified them, but you look at them as a team, and Max Scott has been their leader for years and years and years. But this year, they're getting a ton of help for Max Scott. She doesn't have to put up those 30-point games. Jordan Scott is putting up points in bunches this year. Bree Smart is hitting from the outside. They've got a very well-rounded team. Lyman looks like they could be one of those teams looking for a deep tournament run this year.
And I was going to ask you about this, too, because we've seen some incredible top tier athletes that have come through. You look at like Yankton with Matthew Moores, look at some of like the Maya Sellen's senior year as well, and that fell in that championship game to Sully Buttes. But you look at some of those teams and they maybe weren't quite as well rounded around that one player. So when you have that platinum player that can go off in a game, and then you have a supporting cast as well that also contributes,
or can go off and take that gravity.
Like, how big is that?
That's huge. It's huge. And the teams that you see have success in March are the ones that have those great supporting casts, and they work well together. Everybody kind of knows their roles, and that's something I really feel like this year Coach Vollmer has brought back to Wagner, where everybody kind of has their roles, and they've played a tough schedule early on. They've got a big one coming up here at the Hanson Classic we'll get to later in the show.
All right, so some of the top tilts from last week that also make their way into the headlines. Let's start with boys basketball. What are some of the matchups that we saw on Tuesday night?
Yeah, Tuesday night was a big night. We talked about this last week, as Tuesday having a ton of great games. And Clark Willow Lake took on Castlewood. I think Clark Willow Lake really showed what they're made of. on the defensive side. They were able to shut down Castlewood, just couldn't get going offensively. And that's been the key for Clark Willow Lake all year, is how they play on the defensive side. I mean, some nights Sully Feldberg's going to go off, or Beavers will go off, or Begeman, but really, it's all about their defense, and that's what they showed on Tuesday night. So that was a big win for them. We talked about West Central beating Dakota Valley. That was one of their closer games. Dakota Valley was on their home court. They needed a signature win. They kept it fairly close, but West Central did pull away and get the win there. And then in Double-A, Mitchell played Roosevelt, and I think there's a big group of teams right under Lincoln that were trying to figure out what order they belong. Roosevelt showed on Tuesday night they might be that number 2 team. They played so well. Colton Smith had a few against them, but that team effort and that Mitch Begeman defense really ramped up.
Yeah, I was going to say to because you were high on Roosevelt, even going back to the preseason show that we did here on Game Time about some of the things that you liked that Mitch Begeman is doing, and that Roosevelt could be a team that might be ready to pop. And we might be seeing that.
And again, they brought some new pieces in. I thought maybe it would take more time, but kind of like West Central, they're clicking a little bit earlier than I thought. And then on the girls' side, there were some big games as well Tuesday night. The one we were looking most forward to was O'Gorman and Washington. Washington had been cruising so far, but they had also not had a huge test yet. Well, this is a test. After the first quarter, it was pretty close, but the second quarter totally belonged to Sydney Terveen, who went off for a 28 points in the game, 21 at halftime. Her second quarter was epic. They pulled away by 20. They had a running clock in the second half because O'Gorman played so well. I haven't seen Washington that stifled yet this year, and that's a great sign for Kent Colesrud and the O'Gorman Knights.
Whenever you can have a player that can go off or take over a game, even if it is just for a quarter. You see that in the NBA a lot, right? And we do see it in college quite a bit too. But in high school, some of these like 30-point performances or high 20 performances, we kind of see it add up throughout the 4 quarters. Rarely do you see a player go off in one quarter like that to kind of change the momentum and reset the tone of the game.
Sydney Terveen was amazing. She's going to go on and play Division I basketball, and she really showed what she could do against some really quality competition. Washington has some of the best defenders in the class, and for her to do that, that was pretty amazing. So that was a big one. And then in Class A, we had another big one. Sioux Valley, undefeated so far this year. Hamlin has been a great surprise so far this year to me. I mean, they've had a lot of success in the past, but I didn't know they would be sustained that well this year. And Addie Neuendorf and company went off and really held Sioux Valley at arm's length all night long. Sioux Valley couldn't hit their shots, so a big win there for Hamlin. And then on the girls' side, West Central and Dakota Valley played, and Dakota Valley gave West Central a game. It was close. West Central did pull away and get that win, but Dakota Valley, I think, proving that they're going to get better and better with all that sophomore power that they have on that team.
Yeah, some teams do take a little bit more time, right? You're not going to be able to start out the gate and it's going to be, a full sprint the whole season. Some of these teams and we've seen it every year where teams, they find themselves through some of the guts of the season, and that might be what we're seeing here.
I definitely think that's the key, and that's why it surprises me some of these teams haven't taken the time to do it, because normally it does take a few months just to get on the same page.
Absolutely. All right, and then we have as well the big announcement to that. I believe it dropped here this past Friday, and that's Derek Roby, the boys coach at O'Gorman, has announced his retirement at the end of this season. So he's going to coach throughout the rest of the season, says he wants to give a little bit of time as well to the school to figure out, what their next direction and stuff like that might be too. But he says that, it's not really going to depend on the result of this season. My mind's kind of made up, and this is going to be the right choice for me and my family. Maybe he's got, a beach in Cancun that he's looking at, some warmer weather, but one heck of a career for him, and Jandy, talk a little bit too, when he took over that O'Gorman program, when Mike Begeman was the coach there, that was a team that was in title contention. They were popping, and then Mike steps away. Here comes Derek Roby, and had early success in a high-pressure spot.
I think Derek Roby will be the first to tell you he took over in a great position, and he had some great players in those first few years and was able to win some championships with them. But don't let that fool you. This guy knows what he's doing. And I thought when he came to O'Gorman, he'd already had about 20 years of head coaching experience. I'm like, this guy is a veteran. He'll be good. He's actually coached longer at O'Gorman than he has before he got there. It has been 21 years at O'Gorman, and he's brought them championships after championships, state tournament after state tournament. And, he's a rare breed. I don't know how many coaches we're going to see do this for 40 years. Just because the way high school basketball has changed and how much time it takes to be successful, it drains people. And trust me, these coaches are not doing it for the money. That is one thing they're not doing it for. So the dedication that Derek Roby and the legacy that he's going to leave with all these kids that he's impacted over the last 40 years, huge shout out to Coach Roby.
Yeah, and he actually, won a state title in high school for Mitchell, playing for legendary coach Gary Munson. And then, Gary Munson didn't retire till 2012.
Yeah.
So when Derek Roby took over that program as well at O'Gorman, obviously had some meetups with his former coach and stuff like that too. So one heck of a career. Congratulations to Derek Roby. All right. Well, Jandy, how about we get into the game changers for the week? Some of the top performers that are making headlines.
Yes, these kids need some props. And let's start with the girls' side. Braylee Bordwick had a big 20-point game against Scotland Menno. Audie Courier, I really like what she did. 8 of 9 from the field for De Smet in their big win last Thursday night against Arlington. A 20-point game as well, 5 rebounds. Ella DeNicker of McCook Central Montrose, a really close game with Beersford, but she got it done not only with 21 points, but 9 steals. That's a huge, almost double-double for her. Emerson Eppert has been on this list for a couple weeks in a row now. Another big double-double for her against Alcester Hudson. Shania Ferguson of Machpealuta, she has come in and done a great job of assimilating to this already great team.
Yeah, absolutely. To pair her with Ashlyn Carlo Blunt.
Yeah.
It's almost not fair,
right?
It's
not fair. It's not fair.
Because it's just going to propel that program even more. And I think, Matt Rama's definitely got to be impressed with the way that his team has started the year.
Yeah, and Shania went up for a 26-point game. Ashlyn Copel went for another double-double, almost triple-double last Thursday. And then Tuesday night did suffer a loss, but came up with another huge night on the scoring column. Again, over 20 points for her. Ella Merriman in that loss, she played against McCook Central Montrose in that game. In the loss, put up a 37-point game, so it definitely wasn't her fault.
Yeah, and whenever you see those types of performances, again, I talked about this last week too, but I just love it when I see the high rebound performances. And we'll see a few more on this list as well, but when you see a scorer that's also finding their way to get around the glass, to get control of the ball, and help out her team from that regards too, that's always a big lift.
Yeah, Olivia Paget just lives on this list. Another 29-point game last Thursday. Tuesday against Crofton, played really well. Max Scott went for a 16-rebound game last week. I said earlier her point total maybe isn't as high, but you put up 16 boards, you're doing your job. Izzy Stephenson of Hamlin, another big night last Thursday against Hamlin. Tuesday night helped her team get a win over Sioux Valley. And then a couple of Tuesday night performers. Jalen Huntemer went for 36 for Arlington. Jordan Scott out of Lyman with another big 24-point game. How about Taylor Roovers of Vermilion? A 29-point game and getting over 1,000 points for her career. Casey Jaron of West Central, a 27-point game against a good quality Dakota Valley team. And Izzy Idy out of Centerville. They got beat last week, but she has had a tremendous season so far this year. A 30-point game for her.
All right, so a lot of impressive performers on the girls' side. What about the boys? Who did you like here? Should we start with Casey Riley out of Little Wound?
Yes, exactly. This guy has had a tremendous year. He played at Roosevelt a couple years ago, came over to Little Wound, has really injected them with some scoring. 24 points on Friday night against Dupree. Carter Craven has been on an absolute tear over the last month. Another 25-point 11-rebound game for him against Winter. Maddox Foss went for a 24-12 game, another big double-double. Camden Kessler had a 32-point game and an overtime win last week. Couldn't quite get it done on Tuesday, but what a performance last Saturday for him.
Yeah, and he's one of those individuals that was on that, was a big component of why Castlewood won a state championship last year. And, with the absence of Lowy, the big man from Castlewood this year, with graduation, it's really up for Kessler to step up even further this year, and we're starting to see that from him. There's still some punch with that Castlewood team.
He definitely has. Thielen Kierstad out of Wall. This guy is one of the best shooters in the state and went back-to-back nights with a 29-point performance and then a 31-point performance the day after against Bennett County. Isaac Leader out of Platte Geddes, a 20-point game. Marvin Richard, every single time he takes the court, he's going to get on the game changer list. Went for 37, 7, and 8 with 11 steals against St. Francis Indian last Thursday night. Hayden Rock, probably one of the top scorers in AA, went for a 35-point game against Rapid City Christian on Friday. Brady Schroedermeyer, a 33-point performance against Hanson on Thursday. And then Tuesday night goes for another big game in their win. So this guy is, we talked about Brian Lowy missing for Castlewood. Well, Viborg Hurley was missing Nick Hansen, and this guy has stepped up huge.
Yeah, Viborg Hurley, whenever we talk about what their boys program is going to be this year, it has to start with Brady Schodemeyer. What he's able to do, you don't want him to have an off night at this point just because of how impressive, how much like his performances have helped lift Viborg Hurley to some of these wins. But that's what good players do. That's what leaders do. And they always seem to find a way to get themselves around the basket with the ball in their hands and put up points.
Yeah, he's had a great year. How about Grant Wilkinson, a 24-point, 14-rebound performance against Arlington on Friday, and then comes back on Tuesday with a 29 and 22. I've seen more 20-plus rebound games from him in the last year and a half than I have from anybody I can remember.
Yeah, we talked about Wilkinson last week as well, about just how he's really started to mold into one of these elite players, both offensively and defensively, one of the great bigs that we're seeing in B basketball and all of basketball right now in South Dakota. And that's just going to help. We're going to have some more serious conversations, I think, about DeSmet here in the future weeks.
Yeah, totally. And then Holden Woolman, wrapping it up for Bridgewater Emory, has played 3 games in the last 7 days. Here's what he's done. 26 points against Freeman. Went against JVC, scored 28, and then on Tuesday night comes back and scores another 24-point game in 3 really good, tightly contested games. He stepped up in a huge way.
80 points in 3 days, in 3 games, that's not a bad resume, right?
He's feeling it. You don't want to run into Holden Woolman right now. I also have to mention, I just saw on Tuesday night, Will Riesel of Miller put up a 30-point game as well. And I'm sure we're missing a few others, and that's where you guys come in. Make sure you let us know. You can follow us on any of the social medias, direct message us. Let us know if you see any performances that belong on this list.
Yeah, this is the People Show. It's for you guys, so please, let us know, some of the performances and what you want to hear, because we certainly do appreciate it week for week.
Definitely do.
All right, let's get to some of the promotions. We talk about Centerville's basketball team, right, and some of the recent success that they've had.
What a turnaround.
Tucker is a phenomenal coach there and has done some good things with that girls program. And SDPB took a little bit more of an in-depth look at just the community of Centerville with their Dakota Life series, Greetings from Centerville. It'll air on Thursday, January 15th, and it'll air at 8 p.m. Central, 7 Mountain. It'll also be available on SDPB's YouTube as well. So make sure you check out Greetings from Centerville, part of SDPB's Dakota Life series. It's a tremendous thing. You've spent some time in Centerville as well. Bet. What a community.
All these communities are great that for Dakota Life, and the shows are put together in a way where you really feel like you're in that town and learn more about what's going on. And for Centerville, there's so many things that are a pulse, but sports, obviously, a big pulse in Centerville. And you said it, their girls basketball team has really been doing the heavy lifting the last couple of years.
And their zebra donuts are pretty good, too.
Pretty good. I will attest to that.
All right, so let's get in now. The big thing this week, we've spent some time going through some of the different classics and stuff like this, but January has always been a time for one of the biggest classics that we have in the state of South Dakota. That's the Hanson Classic. Yep. And they have just been going on for years and years and years, and it should be another exciting year with the Hanson Classic.
The 43rd annual, it's played at the Corn Palace, of course, which gives it some great nuance. And they do such a great job of projecting which teams they want to invite for the next year and making those matchups just basically mid-season state tournament type feel games, because you've got all these teams that have a lot of potential, and you get to see them play each other in the middle of the season. And so this coming up Saturday, we get to see the girls take the court, and they've got a great array of teams, starting at, morning basketball all the way through night when we get to see the top 2 teams in Class A. But, it's mostly Class B teams with some Class A teams sprinkled in, but they really do get the best of the best.
And the thing I like about it, too, is it gives an opportunity for some of these smaller schools to get an opportunity, like you said, to play in a bigger venue like the Corn Palace, which it feels like a long time ago, and if you look at a calendar, it was a long time ago, but it wasn't all that long ago where Mitchell was hosting state tournaments and stuff like that. So, and it's still this building that's got the nostalgia to it. It's special, and to give players an opportunity to play in a bigger venue where sound acts differently and all that type of stuff at this point of the season is big.
Oh, that's one of the things that almost every coach I've talked to says it really is immeasurable to know the importance of playing in big games before you get in that state tournament feel. And yeah, it's not just your home fans and the other team's home fans. It's a lot of eyeballs watching these games that don't normally get to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go through some of these matchups. I mean, we talked about that there's going to be some good ones. Which ones do you have your eye on?
Well, let's just go right through the list. Starting at 10 in the morning, you got the host team, Hanson, taking on Woodbury Central, Iowa. Hanson, always a team that has been in this, obviously, and they kick things off. But right there in the morning, we go to Sanborn Central, Woonsocket, last year's runner-up in Class B, taking on Elk Point Jefferson, fresh off of a win against Wagner on Tuesday night. I think these two teams are a little closer. Of course, Sanborn Central, Woonsocket, a new coach coming from Class B. You got Elk Point Jefferson, not really as ranked or as highly touted, but they're a Class A team that just got a big win. I think there's a lot of things that could really excite people in this game, including Liz Boucher, who has been over 20 points the last couple of weeks for Sanborn Central, Woonsocket. And then EPJ, I think you get to see players like Sarah Schmitz, who maybe aren't talked about as much on a state level, but have a lot of talent, and you'll be able to see those kind of players square off.
And then you got Corsica Stickney versus Harding County. Harding County, has been racking up some incredible numbers in the win column here the last few years. They just seem to just plow through their schedule, and they're going to get tested with the Corsica Stickney team here.
Yeah, this Corsica Stickney team really has been impressive. They have the signature win against Sanborn Central Woonsocket earlier this year, and their only 2 losses, to me, are the 2 best teams in Class B in Parkston and Lyman. So this is going to be huge. This Harding County team, like you said, 54-4 since the beginning of the last 2.5 seasons.
That's incredible.
So they are unbelievable, and they do it with young players. And Camry Padden has been their leading scorer, but they have 4 or 5 players that can come out and get double digits on any given night. So this is definitely not a one-person team.
I love how scrappy Harding County is, how aggressive they are throughout the game. They must do a great job of conditioning because they show such a good job of keeping the same energy early in games, late into games, whether it be a half-court press, full court, whatever. They just do a great job of creating chaos.
They do.
Defensively, and it causes a lot of turnovers for the opposition, and that's been a big reason for a lot of their success.
The one knock on Harding County is always, who have you played? Well, that's what the Hanson Classic's for, is
Absolutely.
to get some teams that they can really test themselves before they get on that state tournament stage.
We talked about Lyman. They're going to take on Mobridge Pollock in the afternoon. Fans are going to get a chance to see that number 1 team.
A number 1 team playing an early game in the Hanson Classic. That's going to be awesome. But they're both coming from, a little ways away. So Lyman, your new number 1, but Mobridge Pollock, their losses only have been to Hamlin and Sioux Valley, who, have a combined 1 loss so far this year. Coach Stefan Heddick really likes this team, and Blake Thompson is a special player. She's coming off a 25-point game against Shiloh Christian a week ago, and they present a lot of problems. Lyman is going to have to be ready for this one. Don't be shocked if this one goes one way or the other. These are 2 really good teams.
Yeah, excited for that one. And then later in the afternoon, we've got St. Thomas More versus Dakota Valley.
Yeah.
Another one that should be pretty exciting. Opposite ends of the state.
Yeah, opposite ends of the state. And the thing I find interesting is both of these teams' losses have come to out-of-state teams. So St. Thomas More goes out and plays a lot of, Montana, Wyoming type teams. That's where they got their losses. Dakota Valley has lost both their games, up until Tuesday, to, Iowa teams.
Yeah.
So they're going to be tested against each other. It'll be interesting.
Yep, excited for that one. And then we're going to get a chance, too, to see Wagner versus Hamlin. There's some big names with both of these teams when you look at those rosters. And we're going to have an opportunity to kind of see how those things shake out.
some big-time college players in this game. You've got, obviously, Ashland Copel going to Nebraska, one of the top prospects in the state that we've ever had. But on the Hamlin side, Addie Neuendorf and company, she's going to Northern State. She had a big night on Tuesday with Issy Stephenson, and they've had impressive wins all year. Flander, Dubrook, they've beaten Mobridge Pollock. They beat Sioux Valley on Tuesday night. This is a team with an impressive resume. So, if they can do that against Wagner, I like Wagner. I think they've improved since last year, even though they had that loss on Tuesday night. Hannah Holzbauer, Raven Madricki, Braxton Nedved, trying to help create some of that supporting cast, but it's still all about Ashland Copel.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I'm actually a big fan of Hamlin. I think they have a lot of intangibles that they bring to the table. It'll be interesting to see how they choose to defend Ashland Copel in this one.
Well, and so far, if it's any indication, every single team has double or triple teamed her, so expect that.
And then you got Parkston versus Ethan later in the day.
Yeah.
Parkston, another one of those teams that we talk about. They're right in that conversation, right there near the top.
Yeah, getting some number one votes, yeah.
So what do you like about them going up against Ethan's team?
Well, the interesting thing here is Parkston does it with basically 5 guards on the court at the same time. No one over 5'9" on this entire roster. Ethan, on the other hand, their only loss came to Wagner, where they really played well in the first half of that game and could not close it off against, basically Ashland Copel. So, but they do it with a senior heavy team. Rachel Clock, Alyssa Storm, Tizai Hawkins. This is a team ready to make some noise. So for them to get back on track, this would be a huge win for Ethan, to play against a real regional rival. I mean, these schools are really close together. They co-op for track. They do a lot of things together, baseball, other sports, and now get to play each other. So they know each other well.
And we get to see Parkston at Wagner as well before we get to the Hanson Classic. So a big week for Parkston on their schedule, and we'll see how that shakes out. And then we've got kind of the projected top team with Makpialuta going against one of the biggest surprises we've seen this year with Lennox. They've got some big wins. This will be a really nice way to end the night on the girls' side.
Yeah, this Lennox team, you talked about them as a surprise, but I don't think they're surprised. Andy Peters has been ready for this big moment. They've had some freshmen making big moments this year that weren't a big part of the rotation last year. And I love what they have in the middle, too. Like, they've got a true post player in the middle that can give them some big minutes, in Olivia Niederbaumer, who is really trouble for other teams. So Lennox is a really good team, but Makpialuta, doing what they did last year and getting that experience at the state tournament level, and then this year improving their schedule a little bit, they just feel like they're in another stratosphere right now. Their average win is 43 points. They rotate 8 players usually, and they can go deeper on the bench if they need to because they run all game long, up and down. They created 41 turnovers against Bennett County. 41 turnovers against Bennett County.
Yeah.
So that's the huge key for me is, can Lennox bring the ball up? If they can get past that, then if Niederbaumer has a big game for them, they can play with Makpialuta, one of the few teams I think that can play with Makpialuta.
Maybe a potential state tournament preview, potentially, with these teams.
I mean, no doubt. These two teams are going to be on your short list of teams. There's others that could work their way in, but this one is going to be must watch.
And Ashlyn Carla Blunt, she's shooting over 50% on the year.
Crazy.
She's averaging, she shares the ball around. She's averaging over 5 assists, almost has 8 rebounds a game. I mean, and she can shoot it from beyond the arc too, which is a tremendous
thing.
Her
points per game aren't killing you because she's sharing it so much and they're getting these huge wins. They don't need her, but what is she shooting from 3? 50,
almost 60%.
60% from 3. And then you add Shania Ferguson with her. They're one thing though, Ashland's their tallest player. They've got maybe no true post player, and so if that's where I think Lennox can maybe make some noise if they can get the ball up the court.
Right, absolutely. There's challenges, there's give and takes both ways, and it'll be really interesting. This will be one that we'll all certainly have our eyes on. All right, so top tilts for the week. What do you got, Jandy?
Well, here's a look at all of them. There's a lot of good ones. I think looking at Thursday, DeSmet against Clark Willow Lake, I think the top team in Class B in DeSmet, they're ranked number 2 right now, against the number 3 team in Class A. That one's going to be tremendous looking ahead of that one. Friday, I really want to see what Huron can do against Lincoln. Maybe that's a big comeback situation for them. Lincoln's best test so far this year. Saturday's full of great games, including Aberdeen and T-Area, two girls teams that have kind of surprised a little bit this year and been top 5 type of contenders. And then next Tuesday, before we come back on the show, make sure you check out those games. I'm really interested to see what Chester can do. That's one of my favorite teams coming into the season, and thinking they would get better as the season goes on. Well, as the season goes on, this Sioux Valley test is going to be right up there with some of the top tests that they get all season long.
All right, well, there's kind of a look at what happened the past week, where we're going for the next week. It's been fun again, Jandy.
It is, and next week we'll be previewing the boys Hanson Classic, so make sure you stay with us for that one.
All right, well, he's Jason Andera. I'm Nate Weck, and thank you for joining us on another week of Game Time.